This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
He's back. Welcome, everybody, into this Tuesday edition of Money Moves. Stormy, Buonantony, and Jonathan Von Tobel with you. How was the weekend? Yeah, the long weekend. We miss you.
Okay. Yeah, it was good. So I don't think I mentioned what I was leaving for or if I was even leaving. We just kind of, I like that thing where you just don't mention where you're going.
Are you a big Irish goodbye guy?
Oh, absolutely.
I guess on that note. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially if it's a setting in which I will see the people again, if it's good friends, it's like, yeah, why do I have to say goodbye? I'm going to see you probably again in a couple of days. But a big shout out to my oldest little sister, Greta Von Tobel, now Greta Buchanan. She went and got married out in St. Augustine, Florida. So I was out in Florida for a couple of days checking it out. Just, I think it's south of Jacksonville, if I remember correctly. But a wonderful town, wonderful time. Had fun watching my little sister get married. So it was cool. It was a good couple of days. Even despite, I'm not a big, as you know, we've shared it before. We've actually traveled together on our trip to Omaha last year. I'm not a big travel guy, but pretty seamless to and from, and a really cool town. So shout out to St. Augustine, Florida. I will be back. That was a tremendous trip.
Yeah, I think that was cool. The first thing that you said when you walked up to me this morning and I asked how the weekend was, you're like, that is a really cool place. And so good for you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Because you mentioned Omaha real quickly, it is worth noting we do have an elimination game coming out there in Omaha for the College World Series in a moment, a Game 1 rematch between West Virginia and Troy. Mountaineers, pretty big favorites in this spot, a little over $2 right now, but it was minus 230 when I checked these numbers about half an hour ago, down to minus 215 to 12, depending on where you look. So a little bit of money line play on Troy here. This total up from 12.5 to 14, and it's juiced minus 120 to the over. First game that we saw of these two was a 7-5 final in favor of West Virginia. So we got to that 12 number. Not as great a pitching matchup in today's game. So we'll see if they ultimately do get that over, because that's where all the money appears to be coming in this morning.
Yep. And West Virginia's getting priced pretty consistently. They've been about a $2 favorite in the games that I've been seeing here. So we'll see if they can hold up the market expectations that have been set upon them since the start of this tournament.
We'll keep tabs on the score as we go. A first pitch out there for the greatest show on dirt, set to get underway in a minute, as we are down to 6 now. Both Alabama and Ole Miss officially out of the field already. But with that said, we'll have more baseball throughout the course of the day, especially when we get to our guests. So let's set the table with everything that's to come.
Hold on.
What?
Before we get to the rundown, there's a reason why I'm wearing my colors.
Well, I thought we were going to save that for later.
No. There's a reason why I'm wearing red and nobody can see it, but I've also got some nice black pants on. What colors would those match with a professional team that just won a championship?
All right, we get it. You're decked out for the Carolina Hurricanes because I lost yet another show bet for you back-to-back years in the NHL, which is the sport that I cover, mind you, so don't feel great about it.
And because you're down 2-0, we have what's called compound interest. So I get a free meal at Barry's.
I brought this up on the show yesterday when Dustin was filling in. I said the game had hardly even ended.
It was 2 seconds.
When I get the text message that says, when are we getting Barry's on the calendar?
I was fresh off the plane. I was at a local watering hole with Mitch Moss and some others. Second it ended, it flipped out my phone, and I was like, got to text Stormy.
Yes, pick a date. Pick a date. We'll make it happen in the next couple weeks.
All right, now let's set the table for the show with the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right, lots to get to today. As we mentioned, plenty of Major League Baseball. Adam Burke, VSiN, of course, yes, our managing editor here at the network, but also does a great job covering Major League Baseball each and every day. We got all 30 teams in action today, so get his best bets, as well as Taylor Zarzour, who will be covering the U.S. Open this week at Shinnecock Hills, get his thoughts on the field, and of course, the favorite, Scottie Scheffler, who is in search of the career Grand Slam and his first win since the start of the PGA Tour season this year.
Surprised you're also ignoring the common thread between the two, Adam Burke and Taylor Zarzour. A little bit of an NFL backdrop, if you will, because the NFL guide comes out next week. I submitted my AFC East write-up yesterday. Our best bets for the guide will be due here. And Zarzour does some work for the Titans, correct? So we've got a lot to get to.
Yes, he is the play-by-play voice on the radio for the Tennessee Titans. He's out there at minicamp today, so we'll get some thoughts on what he thinks for Cam Ward in the future in Tennessee.
Our Titans? You're pretty high on the Titans, right? Okay.
Our Titans.
Right.
We also will see if we have more pandemonium on the pitch today. 4 matches on deck, all 4 yesterday. Finishing in a draw, a $100 parlay on 4 draws would have paid more than $65,000. The most remarkable of the day, though, no doubt, Spain and Cape Verde, who finished in a 0-0 draw.
Yeah, those draws have been pretty profitable. They're obviously pretty highly priced, but they've been coming in with some frequency throughout the World Cup tournament as well. But for today, very much looking forward to it. You and I both have, I think, a very similar mindset when it comes to France and Senegal, which will get started in less than an hour in terms of our bets for that contest. And I'll just say that I'm smelling what you're stepping in for the second game of the day as well.
Okay, I'm here for it. We will also, coming up in the next segment, dive into the NBA draft. We are a week away now. We're going to break down some of the more interesting reports around the draft, including Kansas star Darren Peterson working out for one team only.
I'm really excited. It kind of hits you and sneaks up on you, especially because usually we're used to the draft being on a Thursday, but that is not where we're having it here, as you mentioned. So we don't have that much time to get ready for this, and draft market's going to start to pop up quick. But that also means news is happening, and we're going to talk about this because there's little bits of news that I think if you actually connect the threads, and maybe I'm Charlie Day with all the red string on the board, but I think that's kind of what we're getting here, and I think it leads you to looking at the way the top 3 might play out in a way that not many maybe expect it to play out.
We'll deep dive again on that next segment, but from the NBA draft to the NFL Supplemental Draft to kick things off here, and what's likely a sore subject for Texas Tech fans right now. Reports last night, quarterback Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech are mutually agreeing to part ways. The news comes amidst the pending legal saga that has followed his initial ineligibility, then the temporary injunction to play college football, all revolving around, of course, his admitting gambling addiction and to have bet on games when he was a member of the team back in Indiana. He leaves Texas Tech without ever playing it down, and now, as I alluded to, will apply to partake in the NFL's supplemental draft coming up in July.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I mean, it probably won't happen, but the NFL does have to approve whether or not he'll be in the supplemental draft, and I'm sure that will happen. Then we get into the territory of, okay, what kind of a draft pick are you going to spend on him at this point right now? Because then you're sacrificing that draft pick in the upcoming draft. So that is going to be something worth looking at. I would not expect, because I was watching, I pulled the Stormy Buonantony this morning, flipped on national sports programs while I was out and getting ready for the show, and I watched VSiN as well, watched the numbers game. And one of the things that was brought up was, would he in this draft had gone before Ty Simpson? And many of them said, yeah, I think so, probably. I don't think that Brendan Sorsby is going to be worth a first-round pick in a supplemental draft. I don't think he's going to be worth a second-round pick in a supplemental draft. So we'll see if that's actually the case. But we are starting to hear that he is a prospect that many had some respect for, whether that's a third-round pick, second, whatever it is. And maybe there's going to be a team that is going to be willing to bite at some point. That's
what I've largely seen at this point, at least, is kind of the third-round grade type of thing. And as you were mentioning, this is essentially and this is the most that anyone has talked about a supplemental draft in a really long time, right? There has not been a pick taken in the last 7 years. So the way that this works, for anyone who might not be familiar, is it's essentially like an auction, a blind auction system. And you put in, if you are an NFL team, you submit what you would be willing to give up, because if you use it, you lose it, essentially, if your bid is selected. So let's say you say, okay, I would use a third-round pick on Brendan Sorsby, and in the pecking order, you're up, and that is the best bid that has been given in this blind auction supplemental draft, then you don't get that third-round pick in next year's draft if you're taking Sorsby onto your roster. So it's kind of like an advance on the draft for next year. We have seen this happen in the past, right? I think Terrell Pryor is the big example that's been brought up a lot. Somebody who, I want to follow this up with the thought process of the NFL could hypothetically in a world penalize him as well. And so the Terrell Pryor angle of this is, if you remember, he sold memorabilia, he traded autographs for tattoos, which is all like well and good in today's day and age. But the NFL did suspend him for 5 games because of the way that the NCAA was going to penalize him.
Can you imagine that today?
Right? It's insane.
So stupid.
So there is a hypothetical world where the NFL could penalize Sorsby. I would find it pretty hard to believe that happens because he hasn't broken any NFL rules, but that's still to be determined. All of this to get to, I want to play this soundbite real quickly because our own Tim Murray, of course, VSiN host here, VSiN Primetime, and on the weekend, but he also hosts the College Football Betting Podcast, had this to say about Texas Tech.
I bet Texas Tech to win the Big 12. I fully anticipated Sorsby not to play. I still think they're the best team in that conference. They don't play BYU. They don't play Utah. They don't play Kansas State. They're going to be a double-digit favorite in every single game.
And
I think their
will
roster
be back at some point.
And Will Hammond, I think, is a good quarterback.
And so that's I think where you go next is you look at the odds board in the Big 12. After the news that Sorsby was eligible came through, Texas Tech moved out to an odds on minus 150 or so favored in the conference. Now they're back down to around plus 105. Their national championship odds stay the same. But there are a lot of people that really like this Texas Tech team regardless of Brendan Sorsby being there.
Yeah, and Hammond is, I think, to their point here, former four-star guy who had to come in relief if you go back to the game against Utah, I believe it was, and played relatively well. So, and I think, obviously in college football, the gap between a starter and their backup is much smaller for the most part in a lot of these rosters than you're talking about in the National Football League. We're talking about a true starter and a backup and what that's going to look like. So you could plug them into a really talented team with an easy schedule and still expect a lot of success for Texas Tech. And I think if I was what Tim is talking about here, when you're looking at evaluating this team, its schedule, and what Hammond could potentially be, and thinking that, I don't think you're missing out on too much here, and it's worth still looking at the Red Raiders to get this thing done. Yeah,
and I think head coach Joey Maguire and this staff could probably use this as a little bit of a galvanizing moment for them in the program going into this year as well. And real quickly, before we go off of this, for a little bit of background on why ultimately Sorsby is pulling his lawsuit and why this has all come down. For anyone who missed it yesterday, the Big 12 sued Texas Tech in federal court in Dallas, seeking a ruling that would allow the Big 12 essentially to apply its own bylaws and sanction Texas Tech should he play in any games this year. We know also the NCAA was trying to expedite their appeal of the ruling in general. So this is kind of why all of this has come down fast and furious in the last 24 to 48 hours. But the news, of course, of the day, Brendan Sorsby will not be playing at Texas Tech this year. Okay, we are just getting started here on Money Moves. When we return 1 week from today, as we said, the Washington Wizards will be on the clock with the NBA Finals in the rear view. The draft is upon us next on the NBA calendar. We're going to preview it all when we return. Stick around. More Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, next.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves, Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Coming up in 15 minutes, VSiN's own Adam Burke is going to join the program. We're going to break down what is a 15-game slate in Major League Baseball and a handful of other items. But I want to stick with the NBA theme here to get us started, JVT. We're 1 week away from the NBA draft, 2 weeks out from NBA free agency. So while this past season might be over now in the rear view with the Knicks finally getting to the top of the mountain and everything, we're already looking ahead to 2026-27.
Sponsor us. Look, this is it. I mean, it's the quick turnaround. Then there's going to be free agency. We're going to get all these deals done. We're going to get these teams shaped, formed, and ready to go. And then, by the way, as I love the NBA, or excuse me, the summer, because there's so many little things to bet on throughout it, Summer League's going to be here before you know it. And we'll have that betting experience. We'll be able to see these guys. We'll have Rookie of the Year odds, all that kind of stuff. So, NBA draft next week. I think a lot is starting to percolate here as we are getting closer to the draft. So let's start with the news, I think, of the day when it comes to the draft. It was yesterday, probably about like 24 hours ago or so, maybe a little bit less. Let's hear from Shams Charania, guys, because Charania has had a lot of different reports and whatnot. But this one in particular, involving Darren Peterson, AJ Debonsa, what's going to happen with this dynamic, is actually very similar to what we heard last year. Here's Shams on what's happening with Peterson.
Multiple sources tell ESPN that Darren Peterson has made the decision to only work out and visit with the Washington Wizards. He is not granting anyone else any access to him, any other workout or visit with him. He's only visiting with the number one pick team in the Wizards. I'm told Peterson has met with and worked out multiple times in Washington, D.C. and in the Los Angeles area with the Wizards. My understanding is both Darren Peterson and AJ Debonsa believe they will be the number one pick in the NBA draft.
My understanding is that they both believe they're going to be the number 1 overall pick and that Peterson is working out only in meeting with the Wizards. That's it.
Yep.
There was another report I saw earlier today that Peterson's goal here is to essentially skip Utah. He'd rather, if he doesn't go number 1, he'd rather fall to number 3 and go to Memphis. So I think this is interesting for many different reasons. But I want to tie this in, and this is where my Charlie Day with the red string conspiracy theory comes in. I'm going to tie this into a report that came out yesterday as well. This is from Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report, does work for Mark Stein on the Steinline, his blog that he's got. Well, the expectation remains that Trae Young will find a new, longer-term agreement with the Wizards. Remember, they traded for him. Sources say several teams, including Miami, are considering trade avenues to add the 4-time All-Star guard, while Washington mulls its decision regarding next week's number 1 pick in the NBA draft. So with the news that one Darren Peterson has exclusively made himself just available to Washington, we get the news that the Wizards might be shopping Trae Young. It might be shipping him off. Now, one of the big things has been, well, Darren Peterson and Trae Young, it's not really going to fit. You can't have the 2 ball-dominant guards, blah, blah, blah. Well, what if one of them's not there? What if Trae Young's on the way out the door and the Washington Wizards, along with Darren Peterson, kind of made it clear to each other that this is actually maybe where we're going to go. Remember, Ace Bailey really tried hard last year to force his way to Washington. He wanted to be there. They have a need for one of these ball-dominant kind of guards that they want. I mean, Peterson fits it a little bit better, but I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world still to look at Darren Peterson in the light of being the 1st overall pick. He's plus 320. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to ask. So are you then drinking the Kool-Aid?
I mean, I have been. I've got him at plus 340. I've been stubborn on this. I think Peterson can still go number 1. Remember, and maybe I'll bring it back tomorrow. We can replay it. Remember about a month ago, we played the clip from Jonathan Givony on with Zach Lowe, who said, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't understand this dynamic that AJ Debonsa is far and away the guy at number 1. I've watched them play together. We watched them all on college play on the same floor. Peterson was the better player. He is the better prospect. But a lot of this is still, I think, coming from the perception of Peterson. A lot of people still considering that he's, whatever it was with the cramps and all that stuff, lazy, doesn't care about basketball. Also worth pointing out if you're shopping around for prices on Peterson to go number 1, last Poly Market was at 20%, which is giving you about 4-1 on him to go number 1 overall. So that's talking about in comparison to plus 320, plus 300, plus 275 at FanDuel, DraftKings, and MGM. So just keep that in mind if you're shopping around and finding it. But either way, Darren Peterson to go number 1, I've been stubborn on this, and I will continue to be stubborn on it. I think there is a stronger chance than not that he could still go with the 1st overall pick.
I love it. We got 2 drafts in the next 2 weeks with the NBA and NHL, and you're fading the number 1.
Well, the McKenna one, I think I'm going to get wrong. That's not really looking too good for me.
We'll discuss that.
That one, I literally just read 2 mocks, and I was like, I'm betting this. This is ridiculous.
We'll discuss that more as the week goes on. But again, to your secondary point of all of this, though, should it still not be number 1 for Darren Peterson? Could it be 3? He's plus 270 in that market as well to be the number 3 overall pick. So if you wanted to sidestep number 2 and go 3, that's the other option.
I mean, you could, but let's go back to, again, last year with the dynamic with Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey did not want to play in Utah. Last I checked, who does Ace Bailey play for? Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
They picked them anyway. So I think that there's still going to be a sense of let's just draft the best player. We'll, convert him or do whatever if he's going to be available there. We'll see if that's going to be the case. I also keep trying to push the conspiracy theory, and Zach Cohen, our resident NBA guy who vehemently disagrees with me on this. I keep kind of beating the drum that I think there's a better chance than not that Cam Boozer could still go number 2. And so you get the dynamic of Peterson 1, Boozer number 2, and then AJ Debonsa at number 3. And a lot of the pushback, Zach's brought this up to me, Mitch Moss has brought it up to me, we've discussed it, the Utah connection. I tend to downplay that, and maybe I'm doing it incorrectly, but personally, I don't care that he played within the state. I want to build the team that I think is the best, and I think Debonsa and Bailey are somewhat redundant as pieces together. And so if that's going to be the case, I would rather have a Boozer on my roster, and we'll reiterate once more, Cam Boozer's father, Carlos Boozer, is a scout in the front office. And there was a report the other day that there are multiple people in the front office outside of Carlos Boozer that actually do have an affinity for him, his son, I should say, at the number 2 pick. So there is a chance that that could still play out. And I'll just remind everybody again, especially with these NBA drafts, we have seen it all the time. We have seen for weeks, months leading up to a draft, the common perception was player A 1, player B 2, and then player C 3. And then we get to draft day, Paolo anybody, and it flips on a dime. And you're like, oh, wait, no, this is not the order that we expected at all. So I don't think it's, again, I don't think I'm that crazy telling you, guys, we might get something here. So end of the day, the bet to be made, I still think out of all of this is Darren Peterson to go number 1 overall, something I have at plus 340. And again, if you shop around, if you like those prediction markets like Polymarket, you get them at 4-1.
To put some additional numbers to that, though, for the number 2 and number 3 picks, Peterson is at minus 150 to go number 2, but the aforementioned Cam Boozer plus 230 right now. And if you really want to go out on a limb and think Devonta could fall to number 3, 20-1 or better, depending on where you look in that market as well. Obviously, we're going to talk plenty of NBA draft throughout the course of the entire next week, but any other news items that have really caught your attention as it pertains to the draft, or other bets that you have added to the portfolio here?
So first off, I haven't added any bets because the availability for us is not that much. Like, there's a lot of exact markets, so number 1 pick, number 2 pick, number 3. I'm waiting for some widely available draft positions and whatnot, and some top 10, so we'll see if we can grab some of these. But there's a couple of notes that I thought were worth pointing out here. First off, Clippers. So this is seemingly where we're going to start the draft. I think we've kind of established this for a long time now. Clippers, for those who don't remember, do have the 5th overall selection, and that matters for a couple of reasons. First off, the top 4 are widely locked in. It just depends on the order. But the one thing it seems that we do know is that Caleb Wilson will be the 4th player selected. Again, it's not locked in stone. Nothing is. But 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be Devonta, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson in whatever order. And then you get to 5. The reason why that matters is, first off, it's the players, right? The top 4 is widely locked in. We don't know what's going to happen after that. The other part is the Clippers are a team that are on the fringes of the Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes. And so if you want to grab a Giannis Antetokounmpo, well, a 5th overall pick might be a pretty good piece to flip to Milwaukee and go and get it. And then, of course, that means it affects who is going to be drafted in that spot. Keaton Wagler, coming out of Illinois, has widely been mocked as the guy to go 5th overall. But there is some rumblings now and a little bit more. Michael Brown Jr. coming out of Louisville, and then Braden Burries out of Arizona are 2 names that are starting to pop up that if the Clippers make the selection for themselves, the goal would be add a bigger guard next to Darius Garland, because Garland's a little bit smaller, and so you could start to see a scenario in some of the individual draft markets and props that are out there are starting to move in that direction for both Brown Jr. and for Wagler and others. I couldn't find one for Burries, but Wagler's draft position, how about this? Even though every mock draft I've read has him going to the Clippers at 5, his draft position is 7.5, shaded to the under at minus 245. Everybody's familiar with this, but if you're not, just in case, that would mean 1 through 7 if you go under. Michael Brown Jr. draft position 6.5, shaded to the under at minus 250. The also worth pointing out, tying in the 5th overall pick, that the Clippers are seemingly out potentially on Darius Acuff Jr. And so if that is the point, the thing I wanted to bring up, Stormy, is, again, just thinking of different ways to attack some of these draft markets. So, for example, you could think, well, the Brooklyn Nets are going to take Acuff at number 6, and you could bet under 6.5 at minus 160. Or you could bet him 6 overall plus 175. Mm-hmm. So there's just different ways to look at this. But it does seem that Acuff Jr. is being frozen out of the top 5. And that 6 is maybe where he's going to go. But his draft position suggests that that's likely. But if you're going to do that, it seems to me, reading between the tea leaves, that potentially it's just Brooklyn or nothing. Okay. And so just bet him to go 6 overall plus 175.
Interestingly enough, though, he is still your second shot in the number 5 pick market in terms of the direct selection, plus 245. Michael Brown, your favorite, plus 195. And Wagler, plus 310. Okay, you hear the music. We got to step aside again when we return on Money Moves. Spencer Strider, injured again. What it means for the first place Braves rotation. We're going to talk it over with VSiN's own Adam Burke, as well as breaking down the 15-game card across Major League Baseball. Stick around. More coming up on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Today across Major League Baseball, as we welcome you back to Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV, wherever you're watching or listening, hanging out with us, we appreciate it. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, as we now welcome in VSiN Managing Editor Adam Burke in studio, going to hang out with us for the next half hour. Plenty of bets across MLB and more. But I wanted to start with the Spencer Strider news that we get last night. Adam had a really tough outing against the Mets on Friday, pulled after 3 innings. We find out it's actually elbow inflammation. And for a guy that's already had Tommy John and then the brace surgery in 2024, not ideal considering what the expectations have been for his career. What does this mean for the Braves?
Not ideal with Spencer Schwellenbach out for the year, too. You know, that's definitely something that was a tough blow to take in spring training, and then now just adding to it with Strider. Look, I mean, as long as Chris Sale can stay healthy, it's a really big thing for them because he's just been so efficient, so effective. J.R. Ritchie at least has some talent. Martin Perez seems to have found the fountain of youth. Grant Holmes is a guy that I want to fade, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with one of my plays here for today. But you know what? I mean, they're getting by, right? And their bullpen is very, very good. They've been, if you look at 14 days, 30 days, full season, basically every segment of the year, their bullpen has been top 5 from an ERA standpoint. So if they decide that they want to do some piggybacking and stuff like that to kind of navigate these choppier waters, they can do that. And the other thing is, I mean, they still have a 7.5 game lead in the NL East. While it has shrunk a little bit and Philadelphia's been playing better since Don Mattingly took over, I mean, Atlanta's got a lot of offense. They've got the ability to develop pitching from within, and also they have the prospect pool to be able to go out there and get what they want at the trade deadline. And there will be starting pitchers available. And just a little sidebar here, I'm fascinated to see this trade deadline with the upcoming CBA negotiations, the possibility that we lose an entire season or that things change dramatically in terms of contract control of players, in terms of arbitration years, in terms of when they hit free agency, stuff like that. We could see a very, very active trade deadline, and that could benefit a team like the Braves, for example.
Yeah, I'm going to be really curious. I mean, outside of some of the names, who do you think could be up for grabs pitching-wise? I mean, we've talked a lot about Soriano. I think that's going to be one that's going to be out there.
Detmer's probably too.
Yep, Detmer's. Those are both Angels pitchers. Who else do you think, not even just the Braves, but who are going to be some of these big names you think could be moving? Because those could be some impactful pieces that obviously would tip a scale one way or the other.
It really could be. I mean, Joe Ryan's definitely a guy that's going to go. There's no question about that. As long as he's healthy, and really that's the thing for a lot of these guys, right? As long as they're healthy, they're going to go. I mean, do the Cardinals look to capitalize on Dustin May? Yep. I absolutely would. With the extensive injury history that he has throughout the course of his career, the fact that he's, sub 4 ERA, FIP right around 3, I'm capitalizing on that right now. And quite frankly, I'm doing it probably even before you start getting a lot of the chatter, because I don't think the Cardinals are a playoff team. They may think that they are, and I don't think that they're really going to do anything if they do make it to the playoffs. I know it's a tough sell, but also capitalizing on a guy who you've gotten 14 starts from that you probably thought that was about the max of what you were going to get. I would 100% go to the Braves and be like, hey guys, any interest here? What are you looking to give up? I don't know what they will, because they are in a wild card position right now, but look, I think unless you're the Dodgers or the Braves, maybe, no one else has a chance in the National League, it doesn't seem like. So if you are one of these fringy playoff teams and you can get something really good for a Dustin May as opposed to playing maybe 3 games in a wild card series, I think you look to do it. And I think those are the decisions that teams are going to have to make, especially with the financial uncertainty coming at the end of the year.
Just to put a bow on this real quickly, with the Spencer Strider injury specifically, shut down from throwing, period, for at least the next month. Then they're going to reevaluate with another MRI and see where they can go from there. If the scans come back clean, they'll go through the progression and ramp him back up. You mentioned, though, with the Braves today in action, the possibility of fading Grant Holmes. Atlanta -171, moneyline home favorites today. Adrian Hauser on the other side for San Francisco as they open up a 3-game set.
Yeah, and Grant Holmes is a guy who's been on borrowed time for a while. He's a guy that they found out last season there's some damage to his UCL, which is the Tommy John ligament, and he's been able to pitch through it. But when you look at this season as a whole, and Adrian Hauser getting the start here for the Giants, who's been god-awful throughout the course of the season, there are 114 pitchers with at least 60 innings pitched so far. These two guys are basically bottom 10 in stuff plus. They do not have good movement profiles to their pitches. Neither one of them is locating particularly well. Holmes is actually a bottom 10 pitcher from a pitching plus standpoint, which is an advanced metric that takes into account pretty much everything about pitching, including platoon splits, again, the quality of pitches, velocity, movement profiles, swing and miss ability, stuff like that. Holmes just doesn't have good stuff. And Hauser's given up a 10% barrel rate. Holmes got a 10% barrel rate. The one thing I'm worried about tonight is that there will be some rain and some storms hanging around in the Atlanta area. Not a big surprise at this time of the year. That could lead to a delay. Maybe those guys end up with a shortened outing, or maybe the teams are racing the rain, something like that. But I do think there's a good opportunity for runs in this game tonight. And by the way, the Giants got off to a horrible start offensively. They are 5th in weighted on base average over the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitching, and they get one I think they can hit tonight in Holmes, and their bullpen's been bad too. So over 9, my play in that Giants and Braves game.
All right, let's talk about your boys, the Guardians. The magic is worn off. as I think you've told us before you were kind of expecting. And now they get the Brewers here. Gasser got absolutely wrecked out in Vegas, but I think that was expected given the park. Sacconi's going to oppose him. How do we play these two?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I think you want to look at all these games in Vegas with an entire shaker of salt, not just a few grains. Yeah, I mean you just have to, right? And also I would think offensively too. If you're looking at smaller sample size offensive performances, like Colorado looks like the best offense in baseball right now because they dropped 23 on the A's over the weekend. They're not. They just happen to play here on a hot day. You got 3,000 feet of elevation up there in Summerlin. So anything that happened last week, you definitely want to draw a line through, whether it's for a pitcher or for the three lineups that were involved in those games. Gasser's actually been really good at limiting hard contact. He throws a changeup. He's left-handed. Those are two things that Cleveland usually struggles with. And they don't have Jose Ramirez. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, there's maybe a superstar subtraction theory kind of angle here of everybody stepping up a little bit more and all of that in his absence. But they probably don't have Chase DeLauder tonight either because he got hurt over the weekend. Angel Martinez dealing with a foot thing. They are a little bit shorthanded right now. And some guys are probably playing through some things. It's a bad offense to begin with. And then, for Milwaukee, good offense. No question about that. But Slade Sacconi actually been really good. Last 7 starts, ERA of 3.16, 283 FIP in 37 innings. That's a pretty big sample size to be a fluke. So maybe he's overperforming a little bit, but I do think a smart pitching factory like Cleveland has maybe just found some adjustments to make with him. He's only given up 2 home runs in his last 7 starts. So I think this one can stay under the total of 8. Cleveland wants to play close games. Good chance to do that. 2 good defensive teams here as well. I don't think we get a whole lot of runs at AmFam Field tonight.
The Tampa Bay Rays are a game and a half back of the Yankees right now in the AL East, and I know you think they have a chance to cut into that today, which is surprising to me, at least on the surface, just knowing that they're facing the Dodgers on the road. So talk us through tonight's nightcap game, Rays and Dodgers.
Yes, I had the under last night in the Rays and Dodgers game because Nick Martinez is a guy who doesn't walk anybody. Drew Rasmussen doesn't walk anybody either. The difference is Drew Rasmussen can actually miss some bats. Mm-hmm. And so I guess a pretty good matchup for him, at least as good as you can get against the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a team, always have a double-digit walk rate, always strike out right there around 20, 21% just because they work some deep counts. But Rasmussen's a guy who doesn't give up home runs, doesn't walk anybody, and has some swing and miss upside. And not only that, with his command profile, he's able to limit the hard contact that he allows as well. So, yes, going up against the Dodgers is never going to be a picnic, but I do think that Rasmussen has probably the best chance in terms of a profile standpoint of going up against this team. And Justin Wrobleski, who gets the start here for the Dodgers, southpaw, who's got a sub-3 ERA, a lot of negative regression signs in the profile. 4.19 expected ERA, doesn't really strike anybody out. The Rays put a ton of balls in play to begin with. They don't hit for a lot of power, but they're looking to make a lot of contact. And you can absolutely do that against Wrobleski here. So I like the Rays for the first 5. And I think if they have a lead after the first 5, I'm okay with playing the full game. The handicap here for me is Rasmussen over Wrobleski. So I want to play the first 5, but obviously you cut into that price a little bit by just taking the first 5, given the starting pitching matchup. So I'll go for the jackpot here and play the full game as well. But the first 5, I like that angle so much that I figured I would play both the first 5 money line and the full game money line on the Rays tonight.
How'd you like the Rangers ballpark? Had you been there before?
I had not been there, but I enjoyed it. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was definitely better than because I've been to Milwaukee, I've been to Arizona, so I've been to Sky Dome when it was still that when I was a kid up in Toronto. So in terms of the retractable roof stadiums and all that, it was definitely my favorite. Pretty cool ballpark, a lot to do around the ballpark there with that Texas Live thing, which that's also part of it too. When you're grading ballparks, like there's got to be stuff to do around them, right? Like T-Mobile Park in Seattle is awesome. Incredible ballpark, beautiful backdrop, absolutely nothing to do around the stadium. You Uber in, you Uber out. Yep. Texas didn't have that. Texas, you were able to hang around a little bit. I had a good time in Arlington, always do in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
I'm going to Oracle Park for the first time in a couple weeks, and I hear people always comparing like Petco and Oracle among their top 3 ballparks. So I'm excited to finally see it for myself.
I like Petco better, but San Francisco is very good.
Okay.
I like San Francisco more as a ballpark.
Yeah.
I like San Diego's beer selection and the neighborhood, the Gaslamp Quarter.
Give me
and all
a
that.
beer back to San Diego, baby.
Not too shabby. Adam is going to stick around for one more segment. He's beyond knee deep. Let's call him hip deep in preparations for our NFL betting guide. We'll talk it all over when we return.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We are less than a week away from the NFL betting guide dropping here at VSiN as we welcome you back to Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Adam Burke, VSiN managing editor, and it has the honor, is that the right way to say it, of putting together what is this labor of love each and every year. What's going on? Are you excited that it's finally almost going to be time for it to come out at least?
I am excited, especially because I'm really curious to see how it does, what the response is going to be, because this is the earliest we've ever put out the NFL betting guide. Typically, we kind of do it the last week of June, maybe the first week of July. But, there's some logistical things that we're putting it out a little bit earlier here on Monday, June 22nd. And just saw the cover, got that from Jimmy Coleman downstairs. So greatly appreciate that from him. I think it's really interesting. We also changed up the format a little bit for this year's guide as well in terms of our team previews that are, kind of, I think asking and answering some important questions as we look ahead to these seasons for these teams, as we look ahead to, the preseason, all the offseason activities and all those kinds of things. Looking forward to this guy. We got some pretty good feature articles in it as well. A lot of best bets from our VSiN hosts and contributors. Again, for people that aren't really thinking NFL right now, I get it. But at the same time, this is a great compliment to take with you on vacation, when you're by the pool, when you're on the beach, when you're avoiding your children, whatever the case may be. Really good time to consume some of the information in the guide. And also, I think I like the fact that we're putting it out a little bit earlier because we're going to beat some other publications to market. So you're going to be able to get some of those better futures prices that are out there, whether it's awards markets, win totals, whatever the case may be. So looking forward to having that guide out here in 6 days. June 22nd over at VSiN.com. And we are not selling this one a la carte. Only way to get this one is to be a VSiN Pro subscriber. And, you're going to get this guide, our college football guide coming up August 3rd, our NFL 2.0 betting guide August 31st. So a lot of incentives to becoming a VSiN Pro subscriber right now.
And I think that's a good reminder, too, that we do have the early bird special going on for $175. You get the betting guide, you get everything that VSiN has to offer now through the Super Bowl for this discounted rate. VSiN.com/subscribe is how you can come join us.
Would you write AFC North?
AFC North and NFC South.
Okay, because I was curious, as you're a Browns guy, but yeah. I wanted to make the case that I actually think there's something to be said of your Browns actually being better than people think they're going to be this year, especially in an AFC North that I don't think looks as daunting as it has in years past. I'm a big Bengals guy, so we'll see if that actually plays out. But what were some of your, because not to give it away, but what were your burning questions about the Cleveland Browns?
I will say this regarding the Bengals. If you had given me a market of which AFC North head coach would be the last one standing, Zach Taylor would not have been at the top of my list. Like, not even close. But yeah, so it's interesting, right? You got Mike McCarthy in Pittsburgh. You've got Jesse Minter now with Baltimore, who's going in a little bit of a different direction. And then Todd Monken with Cleveland, of course, who was the offensive coordinator of Baltimore. Look, the thing about the Browns is the same as it always is, right? The roster is really, really good, and the quarterback position is probably a black hole. And, whether they do opt to take Brendan Sorsby in the supplemental draft or not, and he might be the best quarterback on the roster if they do, but that doesn't mean that he's an NFL caliber starter right now. So the Browns are difficult because I think the defense is still going to be pretty good, even without Myles Garrett. I think the offense, the skill positions, they've really built those up. The offensive line will be better, but the most important position on the field continues to be a major question mark and problem area.
I love that JVT and I are so like-minded because as we were framing this around burning questions, I was like, my biggest one is Andrew Berry going to take a shot in the supplemental draft and continue project quarterback? What was your thought process, though, when you heard the news come out late last night about Brendan Sorsby and him withdrawing the lawsuit, not playing at Texas Tech this year?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of layers to this, right? I am glad for the sake of college football that he's not going to play because, man, were they creating a slippery slope with everything that was going on there. Look, Monken basically came out and said, yeah, well, we don't really want this guy. Like, that's not really something that we want in our locker room, stuff like that. Of course, they also spent most of the spring saying they weren't going to trade Myles Garrett, and then they did. So I don't know if everyone's on the same page here between Andrew Berry and Todd Monken, which dysfunction in Berea is just, I mean, you could have an anthology about the Browns simply titled that. Do I think they should take a shot on him? I don't really know, right? Texas Tech was going to give him a big bag, but he really wasn't that great at Cincinnati. The measurables are obviously there, and that's what a lot of people are going to get excited about. And we'll see what his pro day looks like, as he's getting ready for the supplemental draft. I would not personally if I was the Browns, because let's say he's okay, right? Let's say he's a league average quarterback and the Browns go 7-10. Well, then what are they going to do to trade up and actually get the franchise quarterback that they need? Because I don't think Brendan Sorsby is that guy. Deshaun Watson isn't. Shedeur Sanders isn't. Dylan Gabriel isn't. Taylon Green isn't. I don't know what position he'll end up playing for this team. I'm sure he'll get on the field somehow. But I wouldn't do it personally. I'm also curious how that would kind of be reacted to in the locker room. But you go into this, you let Watson, continue to dig his own grave with the corpse that he is as a player, and you hope that you're bad enough to get your franchise quarterback.
You said NFC West was the other?
NFC South.
NFC South, excuse me. Oh, good. That's even better. Are you as high on Atlanta as I am?
I'll tell you what, I'm high. I'm pretty high on Atlanta. I love Kevin Stefanski.
I was going to say, yes.
I mean, this guy, he got such a raw deal in Cleveland, right? I mean, multiple different quarterbacks. He got something out of Joe Flacco to get them into the playoffs. They were maybe a third down stop against Kansas City away from making it to the AFC Championship game. And then they just saddled him with Deshaun Watson, and he had to go out there and be the good soldier, the company man. I guarantee you, from a football standpoint, a guy like Kevin Stefanski looked at that and said, what the hell are we doing? Why are we getting this guy? But he had to play along, right? Because the owner wanted it, and he got it done, and so he had to play along. Look, I don't know if Michael Penix is going to be any good. I don't know if Tua is going to be any good. But Kevin Stefanski knows how to put together an offense. And he's got some really good skill position talent there in Atlanta. I think defensively they're going to improve. The other team that I like is, New Orleans, right? I mean, New Orleans was maybe the best team in that division by the end of the year based on what they did. They probably should have finished the season with a 5-game winning streak. They badly outgained Atlanta in that final game, but weren't able to come away with the win. But again, question mark at quarterback, right? Is Tyler Shuck actually a guy? Is he a dude? Can he be a league average quarterback with a defense that's pretty good? So the division as a whole is very poor. Once again, 8-9 might win it. But I do like Atlanta. As I was going through and kind of looking at them, I like the Falcons, and I like the Saints, and I don't like the Buccaneers. I think that's a team that's really going to fall back here this season, where I think the game has just kind of passed Todd Bowles by a little bit. We will be having the same stupid conversation about comeback player of the year when it comes to Tua Tagovailoa next year. Okay. Yeah, I can see it. Do you think he wins the job? I think so. I mean, I think too, when you're talking about Stefanski and the upside, and I think we should not, as you know, because we did shows together on Sundays, I'm not the biggest Tua guy. You cannot deny the upside that Tua has at least shown in a competent offensive system at times throughout his career. You're not playing indoors. You're playing in a division that would not ask you to go out into inclement weather that would include snow or freezing cold temperatures. I think that it sets up nicely for Tua to have a nice little resurgence there. And I think something that's worth pointing out here is, you look at ESPN's offensive line metrics. The Browns were 31st in pass blocking and run blocking last year. Right? They never really, as their offensive line suffered all these injuries, they got really bad. Stefanski has at least a league average, if not slightly better than league average offensive line here with the Falcons. And Tua didn't have a great line in Miami either. So this is an opportunity, I think, for Tua to maybe have a bit of a renaissance. And look, Stefanski did it with Joe Flacco, right? Not to say that Tua and Flacco are the same guy, but Stefanski at least is the type of communicator who I think can kind of get a struggling player back on track a little bit, or maybe a guy kind of questioning his abilities. That would not shock me at all if that wound up coming to fruition. Not only him starting, but being in that comeback player of the year discussion. I think a lot of people are having the same questions about resurgence between Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray in their new spots, right? Like, will this ultimately work out for them and bring them back to the caliber of player at least people thought they were going to be initially? Real quickly, because you mentioned 8-9 might win it in the NFC South. Don't forget, 8-9 did win it last year. That's how the Carolina Panthers won it, and I feel like people forget that they actually are the defending division champs. They stole that. They dominated that division. Yep, ran through. No, it. So obviously you're saying that tongue in cheek, but didn't they even finish the season I want to say 1-4 their last 5 games or something thereabouts. So they were doing everything they could to lose it and still found a way to win it at the end. Crazy. And the thing that's tough too about, obviously making the playoffs, winning the division is great. But the thing for Carolina here, by winning the division, because of the way that the schedule is put together in the NFL, you get 2 full divisions, your own division, and then you get other teams that finish in the same place that you did. So they just happened to add the Eagles, Broncos, and Seahawks to their schedule by virtue of winning the division.
By the way, Tua Tagovailoa is 150 to 1 to win MVP.
Real quickly before we go to break, we see France and Senegal taking the pitch out here from football to football. Dustin Swedelson on the program yesterday is a denier of all of the Europeans who are having fun. He thinks that they're all fake. They're all plants in America. They're all being paid. I think it's been fun. What do you guys think?
I think it's been fun. And speaking of Europeans who are having fun with the World Cup, Alex Blower is downstairs, our chief engineer, writing up some phenomenal soccer previews for us over at VSiN.com. So shout out to him. Doing a great job with that. Nigel Seeley, Luke DeVassa, contributing plenty of World Cup content as well.
Not European, but I think the Japanese account is fake.
Okay, we can discuss this more a little bit when we come back. Ran into Alex at Durango the other day. It was quite fun. We got to step aside. When we come back, we'll give a little preview. You were out of town. What are you talking about?